So with that, I have the pleasure today to introduce our speaker today, Dr. Brij Maliya. His talk, as you see, is on overcoming barriers related to evidence-based practice. It's such an important topic for all of us, for our clinical practice. Now, Dr. Brij Mohan Maliya is an OT with over 22 years experience, working in a variety of settings, including pediatrics, school-based, hand rehab, adult rehab, inpatients, etc. I was fascinated to know that he's worked in so many parts of the world, to include Ireland, UK, Norway, Philippines, Egypt, Bahrain, Qatar, Kuwait, New Zealand, and the US. He graduated with a doctoral and master's degree in OT from Tufts University, USA, with a special interest in evidence-based practice in OT. He completed his undergraduate in occupational therapy from Pandit Deen Dayal Upadhyaya National Institute for Physical Disabilities. He has taught occupational therapy at associate undergraduate level. He's also involved as a guest faculty in OT colleges near the Boston area in US. He also enjoys working as a fieldwork coordinator at his work site, clinical supervision of master's and doctoral students in OT for various OT colleges around the Boston area. Presently, Brij is practicing in a pediatric school-based setting and adult rehab in Boston. Brij also runs various international social media professional groups for OT. So there's a lot of accomplishment, and with that, I'd like to hand over to you, Brij. Thank you.
Right, thank you, Ghazala, and everybody. Hello, everyone. Today, I will talk about how to overcome some of the barriers related to evidence-based practice in OT. So I'm hoping that today we can review basic concepts about evidence-based practice, importance of evidence-based practice, and then talk about barriers to implementing evidence-based practice. And finally, how can we address some of those barriers? We're not discussing the process of evidence-based practice today because I believe that has been covered in the previous webinar by Dr. Mani. So the focus will be on addressing some of the barriers or the reasons why many practitioners are not able to fully embrace it. So evidence-based practice has different names, and some of these are used interchangeably, but they mean more or less the same thing. So what is evidence-based practice? So evidence-based practice integrates clinical experience and patient values with the best available research evidence. Let me explain. So it is a shared decision-making process between practitioner and client that requires practitioners to use clinical expertise and best available evidence to suggest available course of action or choices to the client. For example, you tell your client that based on your experience and available evidence, you are thinking of using one of the two interventions. You may also say that based on your clinical experience and available evidence, intervention A has been more beneficial than intervention B. Or you can also disclose if there are any potential for harm in using these interventions. And then you allow your client to share their goals, their preferences, their values to make an evidence-informed decision for their care. So in evidence-based practice, we often question our decisions to continue to improve clients' care. There may be various treatment approaches or interventions available to you, but you try to select the best available intervention for your client situation. So you need to continue to question yourself, like, why did you select a particular intervention over another one? How do you know that the one you chose is better for your client? In other words, is there any evidence or data to support your decision? So the stakeholders or the system will also ask you these questions. And if they don't, then you need to continue to ask these questions to yourself. See, the evidence-based practice usually helps us find the rationale for our course of actions or recommendations in the interest of providing evidence-based care. We have different types and levels of research evidence available to us. This is a research pyramid that tells us about levels of or the quality of research evidence. Higher you go on this pyramid, the level of evidence or the rigor gets better. We have clinical practice guidelines, systematic reviews, or meta-analysis and random controlled trials at the very top of this pyramid. And then we also have experts' opinion, closer to the bottom. The important thing is to remember, important thing to remember is that we may not always find the top level or the higher level evidence for our clinical dilemma or question. Sometimes we may not find any research evidence, like in rare diseases or conditions. You just need to try to find relevant, best available evidence to support your course of action. Sometimes it is going to be your own anecdotal evidence or your own data in your own setting, which is fine. As long as you have some sort of evidence or data to guide your practice, it's important. So evidence-based practice is not new. It has been around for a very long time. It goes back all the way back to Aristotle, the Greek philosopher, who has been reported as the godfather of evidence-based medicine in the literature. In modern era, late Dr. David Sackett is considered as the father of evidence-based medicine. He introduced the term critical appraisal. Then his student, Dr. Gordon Guyatt, introduced a new concept called scientific medicines, which was later changed by him to evidence-based medicine. So we see that evidence-based medicine originated in medicine, but it has been adopted by many allied health professionals, including OT, and the process is essentially the same for OT as for other disciplines. So the process involves having a clinical dilemma or questions. You may want to know something in your practice. It could be a descriptive question. It could be related to any interventions, prognosis, prevention. So first you ask or write an answerable and focused clinical question, preferably in PICO format. Then you search for the best evidence related to you search the best available relevant research evidence to look for answers to your question. And once you have found the evidence, then you appraise it. You check for its validity and reliability. And using the evidence, if you found the answer to your question, then you share your course of action or recommendations with your client. And then you give your client an opportunity to share their goals, their preferences, their values. And if the client is in agreement with your recommendation or course of action, then you apply it. Once you applied it in your practice, then you assess the outcome or the effectiveness, meaning did it help? Did it work? Yes, no, yes, a little, yes, a lot, or no, it actually made things worse in your unique case. There is one more step after assessing the effectiveness. That step is called communicating the evidence to others. So let others know if it worked or not in your unique case, so it can help guide others in their decision-making process. So it's up to you how you want to share it. It could be just a casual talk with your colleague, or presenting in a seminar, or publishing it in a journal. So as a practitioner, we have to continue to evaluate all of these steps and keep getting better at each step for future. All right, so why is it important? OT practice is influenced by policies, guidelines, code of ethics, code of conduct of national OT associations or certification boards or councils, and also by the OT practice laws. And all of these bodies and service delivery systems expect increased accountability, and all of these strongly recommend evidence-based practice use from service providers, including us. Why should we use it? Well, I'll share some of the reasons for using evidence-based practice from my study. We know that evidence-based practice reduces likelihood of harm to the clients from poor and ineffective intervention. So example would be that we used to keep patients in bed longer during rehab after a heart attack or hip replacement. It didn't help, but slowed down the outcomes. So now we move patients early out of bed in cardiac rehab or hip replacement as soon as they are medically cleared. And evidence shows that it actually is helpful for a fast recovery. We have plenty of published evidence in the literature to support that evidence-based practice actually improve clients' outcomes. Use of evidence can help support our recommendations to clients, to employers, to policymakers, and it also, promotes quality, efficacy, and cost effectiveness of your interventions. And also, it is a component of best practice because it aligns with the code of ethics, code of conduct, and legislations related to OT practice. And it is important for the viability or the existence of OT profession among other professions. So if you use ineffective interventions that are not evidence-based and you don't get outcomes, or worst case, you harm a patient, we may hurt the reputation of our professions among other professions. Every practitioner is an ambassador of the profession, so it is important for all of us to stay current and sound and use sound evidence-based decision making and client-centered care. It can also help with litigations and court cases, especially in Western world, the lawsuit-happy countries, where we have to prove sometimes why we did what we did. So now let's talk about the problem statement and a little bit about my study. So before I conducted my study, I did an extensive literature review and found that majority of OT practitioners perceive evidence-based practice as important for their clients and profession. They have positive perception towards evidence-based practice, but only fewer practitioners use evidence-based practice in their decision-making process due to various barriers. And I was like, thank goodness we have some people using it despite all these barriers. I wondered how these fewer practitioners make it happen despite all these barriers. I said to myself, let's find these practitioners and ask them, how do they do it? So I conducted a qualitative study, and the purpose of my study was to understand how school-based occupational therapists who self-identify as users of evidence-based practice describe their process of overcoming barriers and their process of using available supports and their suggestions for implementing evidence-based practice in school settings. I did get some answers to my research questions, and I will use some of those findings from my study today, along with my experiences so far with barriers. All right, let's look at some of the barriers to implementing evidence-based practice. So one of the barriers to evidence-based practice is lack of resources. For example, practitioners say that they don't have access to when we talk about access to evidence, we are talking about getting hold of the research articles and also being able to decipher or understand a research article that has a lot of complex statistical terminology. You see this slide. Here you see the excess of research evidence is listed as one of the barriers in evidence-based practice. And the building you see on this slide is called Fort Knox in the United States. One of the most secure buildings in the world. It houses US gold reserves and other national treasures from different foreign governments. I'm showing you this photo as a metaphor because that's what happens with some of the research evidence we have. Research evidence are kept behind firewalls, away from practitioners. All you can see is the abstract, unless you pay. So the photo on the right is a vault that has US gold reserves. In our case, that gold are the research articles. The system expects us to use evidence-based practice in OT, but majority of practitioners do not have easy access to evidence when they need it. How counterproductive. Okay, sometimes it is hard to understand research evidence, at least for some practitioners. If the research articles are too encrypted or too difficult to understand, practitioners do not bother using them or reading them. Would you agree that evidence should be more accessible to us, especially if system wants us to use it? So one of the ways to address these barriers is to publish more studies in open access journals. These are the journals that let you see full text for free. Or researchers can find sponsors or grants to have high impact studies open access or free for everyone to read. So majority of stakeholders can have access to it. And I'm glad that some funding sources require this from researchers now as a part of their grant writing. We just need to see it happen more in practice. Also, it would be really helpful to see research studies written in an easy to understand language. I mean, it is understandable that the statistical information has to be there on the article due to the requirement of journals, but making it easy for practitioners by adding a clinical utility section or take-home message in a user-friendly language so practitioners can actually consume the research easily would be better. All right, let's move on to the next barrier, which is the lack of evidence-based practice skills, meaning some practitioners do not know how to do it, like doing a literature review or finding articles or appraising the evidence or applying the evidence into practice. All right, the next barrier we have that is the biggest reported in the literature, lack of time. No one has time. Everybody's busy. The next we have is personal factors among practitioners. For example, practitioners' own motivation, interest, and commitment for embracing evidence-based practice. All right, let's see how we can address some of these barriers of accessing research evidence. So there are free resources and then there are paid resources. We need to be resourceful in getting hold of both. So let's talk about free resources first. So there are many free open access journals where you can access a lot of research studies for free. I will list 7 of them, but there might be more. So you can get full text articles for free from these journals. All right, so we have Open Journal of OT, OT International, and the Journal of OT Education. Here are a few more open access journals. So we have Hong Kong Journal of OT, Irish Journal of OT, Philippines Journal of Allied Health Sciences, and the European Journal of Physical and Rehabilitation Medicine. These are all free. But remember, it is still our responsibility to appraise any research evidence that we find free or not free, and decide if it is relevant and applicable to our individual clients or situation. So we have more free resources for finding research evidence. The first one is Google Scholar, which is the easiest place to start looking for research evidence. Then we have ERIC, which is a free database that has research articles related to education and school-age population, and it provides full-text peer-reviewed articles. Then we have PubMed Central, which is a free digital database that archives open-access full-text scholarly articles. Now, PubMed Central is different than PubMed. PubMed may not give you full-text articles, but PubMed Central might. Next, we have OT Seeker. It is a database that contains abstracts of systematic reviews, random control trials, and other resources relevant to OT. This database has lost funding, so it is not as comprehensive as it used to be. Still, it has some good information. Then we have Pedro, which has over 54,000 trials, reviews, and guidelines evaluating physical therapy interventions. But many of these studies are relevant in OT practice as well. So you can find some of the studies relevant to you there. And I'm only providing you few examples. I'm sure there are more resources out there. There are various reputable and reliable free resources like national or international foundations, associations, government bodies that publishes practice guidelines, systematic reviews, or meta-analyses. So these are often written in a synthesized or filtered manner. Remember the research pyramid I showed you earlier? So these are the top level evidence. Some of the examples include Heart and Stroke Foundation of Canada, and there's Parkinson's UK, which publishes in collaboration with Royal College of OT from UK, and they publish really good guidelines. And this is just an example I'm giving you from the executive summary document from Heart and Stroke Foundation of Canada from the previous slide. So they use this beautiful color coding about available evidence from random control trials. So you see there is an example there that bilateral arm training in upper extremity motor rehab in patient with hemiplegia, and you'll see the conclusion that there, with the color coding evidence, you see green, yellow, and red. It says bilateral arm training may improve motor function, but not the muscle strength. So the available literature is mixed regarding bilateral arm training for improving dexterity and ADL. Now, these type of guidelines are a dream in OT. I can only wish that there are more like these on other topics out there. This would revolutionize the evidence-based practice, but I think we're not there yet, but there is a hope. So on this slide, you see different color coding. So they look at the random control trials, and then they actually do the work for you, and they tell you. So it's just a matter of finding more of these out there. So here are a few more these reliable resources. The first one on the slide is from Australia, the practice guidelines for supporting students with sensory processing challenges. Then you have clinical practice guidelines by US Department of Veterans Affairs, especially for TBI, stroke, and amputation. There are many other out there. I mean, like American Stroke Association, American Heart Association. You just need to look for the one that is relevant to your clinical practice. AIOTA also published practice guidelines, but it's not free. We will discuss that a little later. All right, let's look at more free resources for evidence. We have free access to many critically appraised topics or critically appraised papers, CATs or CAPs we call it. These are often published on many OT school websites in the United States. These are prepared by OT students, but under the supervision of an OT faculty. I have found many of these very useful in my clinical practice. So on this slide, I listed a few OT schools in the US that lets you access these CATs and CAPs for free. I'm sure there are more of these colleges out there. You just need to find them. And I think I made a handout for you guys, so Dr. Money can put that in the chat, and then you will have access to all these. All right, let's talk about the paid research evidence now. So my suggestion is to become a member of an OT association to be able to get research evidence, but I understand cost is a barrier for some. There are many ways to access research articles that aren't free. The result of my study suggested being resourceful in getting hold of paid articles. There were many suggestions in my study, which I was fascinated by when I found out from my participants. So like the first one was to reach out to colleagues who have the subscription to journals or the research databases and share your clinical question or clinical dilemma with them. They may be able to help. You don't have access, someone might, so you can ask them. Or reach out to OT faculty nearby. They may be also able to help you, or reach out to OT college library. Use their alumni privilege if they offer it. My OT school, Tufts University, gives me alumni access. I'm not a student there anymore, but I have alumni access. I can access some of the articles easily. Or you could reach out to researchers directly. Many authors get thrilled when they hear that their research is being used in practice, or it is being used for the research. So I have had very positive experiences with researchers. Their contact info is usually on the article. You can send them an email. You can also explore professional social media sites for evidence, like ResearchGate, Academia, or OT-specific Facebook groups. There are many OT practice Facebook groups out there. If you have a question, you post it, and within minutes or hours, you have like hundreds of perspectives from different practitioners around the world. And most of these, or I should say, some of these groups are closed, so mostly the practitioners are there. You just have to use your common sense in taking out personal information of the client and just keep it very general when you are asking for opinion from others. You can also advocate to your employer for part or full cost sharing for reimbursement for subscription to databases or for attending professional development. And if you are NBCOT certified, you have access to research databases like RefWorks and ProQuest, part of your fee. And I believe certification boards in other countries may also have similar resources. Or you could try writing grants to local charities or parent associations, especially in public schools, for subscription to databases or attending professional development, if possible. Tell them how it can help your client. Maybe they will be able to help you. You could do cost sharing among colleagues for accessing paid resources. You have 10, 15, 20 therapists working with you, and cost is a problem, so you just kind of do cost sharing. If possible, just use the guidelines that are out there, how to use those. All right, you can also get a lot of evidence-based practice resources from AOTA website. It has a whole section devoted to evidence-based practice. It has various useful systematic reviews, critical approach topics, practice guidelines on topics like autism, stroke, TBI, aging, sensory integration, early childhood. A lot of them are out there. It does cost money in the form of membership. Personally, I feel it's worth it, but I also know people have individual circumstances and priorities. We can, however, be resourceful and address the cost barrier by some of the ways we just discussed in previous slides. But you don't have, if you don't have access to paid evidence, the key is that find someone who does. All right, lack of evidence-based practice skill has also been reported as a barrier. Like if you don't know how to do it, my suggestion is to reach out to a mentor or experienced colleague with your questions. You can review some of the statistical term, online or from the textbook. You can read or learn about evidence-based practice concepts. You can look up free online resources to help you understand the research articles or the process. One of such free resource is a training video by American Speech, Language, and Hearing Association on evidence-based practice or process. I really like it. The title of the video is Evidence-Based Practice Tools for Practicing Clinicians. So, the first 18 minutes of this video is really helpful. It'll help you about the basic concept of evidence-based practice. You will learn a lot. So this is only one example. There are hundreds of training videos by reputable sources out there. It is our responsibility to seek out professional development, see what is best for you, and you can choose the video, the training out there relevant to you. And also, if you don't know how to appraise and research articles, you can reach out to mentors, you can reach out to your OT faculty or colleagues. Here's another free training resource for you about understanding how to critically appraise research article by this reputable YouTube channel, Cochrane Common Mental Health Disorders. It has this 7 short video series and 10 to 20 minutes each, I think, on how to critically appraise different type of research studies. Very helpful. All right, moving on to the next barrier, which is the lack of time, which has been reported as the biggest barrier to evidence-based practice in the literature. My study also reported lack of time as a barrier, but in my study, participants reported that they use evidence-based practice regardless of this barrier. So lack of time is a barrier because oftentimes what happens is we don't prioritize what's important. When we say we are too busy or we don't have enough time, it doesn't necessarily mean that we are spending our time on things that are most important to us. We don't have time may means that we have not really prioritized our time. So my study results suggested that it was possible to address lack of time by proper time management and prioritizing what's important. And my study results also suggested that using technology, we can save time for evidence-based practice activities. For example, practitioners can use email or Google Drive collaboration tools for seeking out or exchanging evidence. One can send a quick bulk email to all the colleagues, like, I'm thinking of using this new interventions. Have you heard of it or used it? Do you have any research articles or data to support its use? And you can also use professional closed membership OT social media groups to ask similar questions. Just follow the privacy and confidentiality rules and social media etiquettes. So you post your question there on Facebook social media group by following the confidentiality rules, and you will increase the professional audience if you ask the question there, much larger than your own workplace. And you will get the answers quicker at your fingertips. You can save all the time looking for evidence, doing literature reviews, as someone might already have done it before you. So you can save time using all these technology. All right, so my study results also suggested that if there is no dedicated time for evidence-based practice activities at your workplace, you can be resourceful and try to collaborate with colleagues during already available meeting opportunities, like you have a weekly staff meeting, or you have like a departmental professional development or a case review. So you can use those times, those opportunities where you have all these OTs coming together. You can ask questions there related to any dilemma that you have or clinical questions you have about your client. Lastly, you can also advocate to the employer for dedicated time for evidence-based practice. You can ask your boss that we would like to do a journal club, or we would like to do professional development monthly, or we want to do case reviews meetings where everybody can bring in their difficult cases or everybody can talk and share resources or knowledge. This is a great visual that I got here from our last webinar. It's a great visual about managing your time. You can see the arrows, if it is important or urgent, and then you can decide how you can manage time. All right, so evidence-based practice is definitely a shared responsibility. You saw everyone needs to do their part in addressing barriers. It is not easy to do, we know that, but it is possible. All stakeholders have individual responsibilities. All stakeholders also needs to collaborate and form alliances to address the barriers. For example, OT faculty, they can collaborate with practitioners or OT interns in facilitating evidence-based practice activities like journal clubs, professional development. Now, we know students learn evidence-based practice, so they know how to do literature review, they know how to do evidence-based practice. But the practitioners who are seasoned, like me, I graduated in 1999, and at the time, evidence-based practice was not included in our curriculum. We didn't learn how to do critical appraisal. We didn't learn how to, do literature review. I had to go to colleges to get all this kind of knowledge. So we can use students. We can do like a mutual learning for this thing. We can, the faculty can also offer professional development on topics related to evidence-based practice for practitioners as an incentive for taking OT interns. This is a big problem in the United States, that we can't find OT in internship sites for students. So if we help practitioners, they can help us too. Faculty can also offer access to library resources for practitioners, again, as an incentive for taking interns. So moving on to the researchers, if possible, researchers can try to publish their research papers in open access journals or secure funding to make them open access free. They should try to present their research findings in a user-friendly format for practitioners so it can be easily consumed. I know that OT journal, I think AIOTA, American Journal of OT, charges $1,100 for publishing their studies, and they make it open access. So not everybody has that money, but if the researchers are getting grants and funds, they can use that and then make their high impact studies free for everybody. They can also provide support when practitioners reach out to them for help related to research evidence or evidence-based process. Moving on to administrators. So if you are an OT who is also an administrator, you can do a lot, actually. You can be a role model for staff, and you can lead by examples. You can promote a climate of intellectual curiosity. You can provide supports and incentives for evidence-based practice utilization. You can introduce journal clubs. You can do case reviews. You can do professional development. And you can encourage your staff to refer to journals, practice guidelines, research reviews, meta-analyses. And it all is really helpful. And if you are a practitioner, so you can encourage yourself, your colleagues, your students to refer to practice guidelines, to refer to journals. And the most important thing is to continue to question your course of actions. Whatever you're using, keep on questioning. Asking a question is really important in evidence-based practice or any practice. You should always be wary of what you're doing, why you're doing. Do you have any evidence to support that? That's how you change contemporary practices. You can promote clinical and intellectual curiosity among colleagues and students. You can promote mutually benefiting journal clubs, case reviews, and critical case presentations using evidence-based practice. And then we have OT associations. So they also have an important role in forming a productive alliance of OT faculty, researchers, students, and practitioners for developing easy to understand evidence-based practice resources and a supportive learning community. Now, OT associations are voluntary organizations. They don't have resources or money. We have to help them. Everybody has to come together and form this alliance where researchers can provide their expertise, practitioners can provide their expertise and their questions, what they're dealing with in the trenches, like what problem they're dealing with. So personally, what I got from my study was that practitioners were saying that, oh, we this problem, we don't know how to do it. We could bring that to OT schools or researchers. This is what we need to know, and they can include that in their research. Or OT faculty can consult with their students and say, oh, this is a real problem in the field. Maybe you can do a literature review about this thing, or maybe you can conduct a student's research, and you can come up with some sort of solution that we can share with the practitioner. So this is a mutual learning we all can do together. And whatever we're doing, we have to keep it somewhere. We make a folder, we make a like a file folder in your computer, or I'm a old school, so I have 3 binding folders, and where I keep whatever I find, all the research evidence, and then I refer to it whenever I need it. So we can compile that, and then we can upload it on OT Association website, so anybody can refer to it. So we know there are barriers around us, but we also know that there are various supports available to us that can help us implement evidence-based practice. We just need to start using them, and we don't have to do everything very quick, or change is hard, change is difficult. We just have to start small, and we have to address one barrier at a time. We'll get there with evidence-based practice. So we just have to look we don't have to focus on all the barriers and then get afraid and then say, all right, we can't do it. It's too hard. No, look for the supports out there. There are a lot of supports that can help you use evidence-based practice. So, I mean, you have access to resourceful colleagues. Like, if you don't know how to do it, you always have a colleague, or you can consult to OT faculty. You can go to any expert for consulting about an interventions assessment, or you can reach out for evidence. You can have a mentor. It can be a faculty, it can be an experienced colleague, or it can be an expert in the field, or you can access to OT students or interns that they can also help you a lot. Actually, there are some skills that we don't know, and students are learning it now, like accessing research evidence or conducting a literature review. They can be helpful. You can have, the supportive family is something really important in evidence-based practice, because because of the lack of time, we end up doing a lot of things at home. Like personally, when I'm doing some sort of literature review and there's no time at work, so, and I end up doing it at home. So I have supportive family. My wife, kind of understands, and then she kind of helps. She understands why I need to do it, so they provide that support. So that is also a support for implementing evidence-based practice. You have AIOTA website, and you have other websites, other free resources I share today. You can go to them and then see if you can find some support there. You have OT schools near you. You can ask for help from your faculty, your experts. And then there are social media groups. I think that has revolutionized the mentor concept in today's world. Whatever you need to know, you post it on social media website. There's a website for everything. There's a school-based OT website. There's a pediatric OT website. There's a geriatric OT website. There's a research group. There's all different kind of groups. You just have to find which one is relevant to you. And in olden days, we used to refer to textbook, or we used to go to our faculty. Today, you have a clinical question that you're facing. You post it on that particular closed Facebook group, and in minutes you have like hundreds of perspective from different practitioners who may have faced a similar kind of problem, and then you have all this great mentorship out there that you can use. But you just have to be careful, follow all the confidentiality laws that we have in place, and also the etiquette of social media that can really help you. And employer provided resources is also helpful. Personally, having a computer from work, my job provides me a laptop with internet access, so that is, to me, that is huge. I can look up any evidence in the moment sometimes, or I can access my own repository, or like a own folders where I keep all my evidence related to particular topics. That is a great help. Or dedicated time for journal club. Like at my work, we have time. We have when we can meet and talk about different case scenarios. Employer can also reimburse you for certain trainings and stuff. So that is also a support. And also, one of the biggest support I feel is positive comments or external validation from others for using evidence-based practice, like my boss or a parent or a caregiver telling me, because you use that particular intervention, it really helped my child. It could be handwriting, it could be any sensory related issues. So if when you use evidence and you get these outcomes, and someone tells you that they actually got benefit from this, that kind of gives you that satisfaction, and that external validation helps you, so you can continue to do what you're doing. All right, thank you, everybody. This is all I have for you today. If you have any questions, you can ask me questions. You can contact me. Here's my email, and you can feel free to reach out via my OT professional Facebook group. So we have Occupational Therapy Alliance. It's an international group, and then I have Massachusetts school-based OT, PT, and pediatric group, and then we also have OT mandate uncertain future group. So whichever way you feel free to contact if you have any question related to today's webinar. All right, any questions out there?
Thank you, Brij. We still have quite a bit of time left in this webinar, so please make use of the wonderful resource person here. If you have any questions or if you have any challenges, or if you want to really ask more Indian context specific questions to Dr. Maliya, please make use of this opportunity. You can either unmute yourself and ask, or you can post your question in the chat box. And I've already shared the link to the handout. It's available to everyone, so you can go and download a copy for yourself. And Brij, I'm going to ask you, is that okay to share that link on social media groups, other platforms as well? Yeah. All right. So the author has given the copyright, so I'm going to do it, to other wherever I'm part of, to other OT networks in India. So it's a wonderful resource. Thanks for putting that together, Brij. We appreciate it. Any questions?
So I can't see the chat. So
the chat is there, and there are a couple of messages from Narendra Paul. He tagged us, and okay, thank you for this webinar. Link for feedback. Yeah, I'll just post it in a minute. So there's also a website posted by Narendra Paul. It's called www.codindia.in. So participants can look into the chat box. Let me post the link to the certificate, and we're going to go from there. Give me 1 second. Okay, so here's another question. So Brij, basically one of the participants wants a PDF of the PowerPoint. Is it okay to share it as well?
Yeah, I don't mind.
Okay, cool. All right, Narendra, I saw your hand. If you want to speak.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thanks to Brij sir, and it's great to see after a long time. And because I'm a practitioner of OT, I think in India, I'm basically in rural India, hardcore. I mean, working in villages, and I work with around 3,200 clients. I mean, that's all people with disability in a way we can say they're very focused with all age group, all cross disability kind of work what we are doing. And it includes holistic approach in terms of their livelihood development, vocational assessment, multiple things what we do. So at the ground level. So any thoughts you would like to share that how to kind of bring it down to the communities, or how consistently we can kind of build more evidence, and it's a more of a community based rehab work, what we call the community based inclusion and development work. So if how to kind of integrate the more of EBP. If I understood it correctly, it's a more of kind of the combination of the value of the patient need and what I have experienced and what is there in the ecosystem. I think how to bring that blending together. Yeah. So any thoughts you would like to share, please? Thank you.
Sure. Yes. So in rural areas, one thing I would tell you that we have internet, so we can reach out for evidence out there, but you don't always need research evidence. You can also use your own data that you have collected in your own settings. Like in rural areas, you have a unique situation, unique questions, unique dilemma. So you collect. What I suggest is you collect your own data. That is the biggest evidence out there, because you are working on your client, your situation. You don't have to look at the studies and look at their samples. Like, did they include children, or did they include adults, did they include this or that? So you try to collect your own data, and try to evaluate, like, did it help, did it not help, why didn't it help, what did I do wrong, or what I could have done differently. So you collect that data, and then you apply that evidence, that is also an evidence, into your own practice. And in terms of rural, like in terms of resources, we are all connected, so it doesn't matter. All you need is the internet, or calling your colleagues and your friends if you need help with finding the resources. Also convincing the client, and telling them, making them more like consumers should ask questions to the practitioner. That's what I'm trying to tell. That if they keep asking, why did you tell me to do this? Why not that? Like I went to Delhi and that doctor or therapist told me to do this, and you're telling me to do this. Why? So you can encourage them to ask these kind of questions, and that will bring some sort of things to the consumer. They will ask more questions to more therapists in rural areas and other places. So we will be more cognizant of using evidence-based practice. So you don't need the research evidence. You just create your own in your particular setting. Use that, and then if you have any benefits, share that with the clients. Share that with others.
Yeah, I agree. I think I need to kind of bring that more in the ecosystem of what we have at the upper level, because from the ground, as you mentioned about the barriers, because even the level of awareness of the people in terms of accessing the clinical care, and top of it, the time and the availability, like the different types of cases when we manage. So it's sometimes you have to visit homes, so it's more of home visits, convincing them, counseling them, even to come out and then access the care. So that is also another journey in itself. I mean, yeah.
Yes, I agree totally.
But thank you for this insight. That will great help.
Thank you.
Okay, I will post the link to the PowerPoint PDF in a minute. Meanwhile, I'm not seeing any other questions, so I request Dr. Ghazala Magda to further the proceedings.
Thank you, Karthik, and thank you very much, Brij, for a very excellent and a very simplistic way of putting all this together and giving us so many tips. And thank you for all the participants who have joined us today. But let me pass on to Dr. Bijlani, who can do the vote of thanks. So once again, thank you.
Actually, when I saw this topic, overcoming barriers related to EBP, actually, we the occupational therapists, we can come across any barriers. No, we can do any modification. That's what and just now Dr. Narendra asked. So you can have your own ways, different ways of doing the research and all. It's really very important. And we the occupational therapists can modify, and definitely, yes, it has to be within that framework only, but it's a beautiful topic what these guys international branch is doing, IOTA branch, international IOTA branch. I feel they have been encouraging the research through the sponsorships, and they are giving the sponsorship to the students, the postgraduate students and all, and they are encouraging the research. So it's very important topic, because if we are not doing the research, and that's what I said, that what you said, you have to share with people. So what you do, it has to be shared, and this is how we can also keep on updating our knowledge, regarding new things which I have been undergoing research, and what is the outcome of that and all. It's such a beautiful topic, I should say, and there are so many variations you can have in that this, and definitely, yes, what you said, there will be too many barriers and too many problems may arise, but can be done in a different situation. So thanks a lot. And I should say thank you all participants. And that's what Dr. Karthik said, that there are so many registered occupational therapists in this branch, international branch. So I will request more and more people to attend, so that this is really a good opportunity. Otherwise, we will never get a time, to attend. So this way, we should keep ourselves free. One, I think they are doing it in every last month of the last Saturday or last weekend of the every month, every alternate month. So you can keep yourself free. See that you attend all the lectures, and they are really good. And I appreciate the Dr. Vijay Suple and all the board members, Dr. Ghazala, Dr. Harshvardhan, Dr. Karthik Mani and others, that you keep on doing this. I'm so happy that something is happening, and really, and please keep on sponsoring more and more people to do more and more research. So thanks a lot. Thank you, Dr. Brij. It was wonderful presentation. Thanks everyone. Yeah, thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, madam. So just FYI, with relation to the sponsorship for research, I think we are planning, the notification is already out, I believe. So we are planning to sponsor 5 students or 5 research projects this time.
Really?
Both UG and PG students can apply. So spread the word. And, if you have more questions, shoot an email to internationalchapter@iota@gmail.com. We'll be happy to answer. Or if you have Vijay sir's contact information, you could also do that. With that, I'm not seeing any more questions, and I've also shared the link to the PDF of the slides. The recording of this webinar will be available on our YouTube channel soon. Until we, see you again with another wonderful speaker and a wonderful topic, I'm signing off. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, sir.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.